I've recently been on a lengthy Zoom call with Gabriel, the Dragori Games communication and digital media manager. It was an interesting discussion, and as the launch date for the Tanares RPG Kickstarter is quickly approaching, I've decided to take a closer look into their two free sample classes, Dragonblade and Madwalker. As of August 2021, both are limited to Tier 1 character progression, but they will be finished and ready to play until level 20 sometime in 2022. As the title suggests, I'll focus on Dragonblade in this video. In the world of Tanares, Dragonblades are scholars extremely infatuated if not obsessed with dragons, draconic energies and the powers they wield. The practical applications of their studies manifest on their own bodies as they grow claws and scales and start exhibiting draconic powers. Thus, many of these scholars turn into warriors, and as such, they develop themselves into capable martials. In fact, to say they are capable martials is really an oversimplification. First, the class doesn't come with a standard set of carbon copy 5th edition features such as fighting style or extra attack, which are par for the course in the majority of official martial classes. Second, it is very front-loaded with 3 distinct features right away at level 1. One is called like, the other one is called subscribe, and the last one is a bell icon button, so please energize them with your draconic powers. Thank you very much. Third, the number of core class options you get to pick and choose rivals that of a battlemaster, a specific fighter subclass. And these are all solid options because they all combo off of each other, making the class tactically engaging, requiring the constant decision making and adapting to the various combat encounter circumstances and conditions. Kind of like a spellcaster, but in a different, unique way. I must admit, I think that the 1d8 hit die is a bit low. I'd like to see a d10 on Dragonblades similar to paladins, fighters and rangers. I know d8 is the most common hit die across all 13 official classes, but martials like monks and rogues who have 1d8s have ways to compensate for the fewer hit points they have with the combination of defensive and mobility features. It's not a big issue though, Dragonblades do have a few tricks up their sleeve as well, and it's only just a few hit points of difference anyway. It probably makes more sense from a thematic perspective, seeing how Dragonblades are scholars turned warriors, but mechanically a slight bump wouldn't hurt in my own opinion. Proficiencies are an interesting mix. You can wear and wield all the armor and weapon types. I'm not sure if the world of Tanares has a rich forging culture, but I'd almost always pick cartographer's tools over smith's tools. Reading and drawing maps is so much more consistently useful than tinkering with metals. Besides, I wouldn't want to step on artificer's toes either. Saving throws, skills and starting equipment make the Dragonblade a legitimate competitor to a first level fighter dip, which so many wizards like to take, especially because you also get a feature called claws and scales. Now, contrary to what the name implies, it makes you a 200 IQ combatant, one that doesn't rely on sharp fingertips and hardened skin at all, really. The draconic body parts become conduits of draconic energies and influences, enabling you to wield weapons and don armor in supernatural ways. I don't see the multiclassing requirements listed anywhere in this sample, but it makes sense to me that you would need 13 minimum in intelligence and maybe even 13 in constitution. Both fit perfectly for a wizard anyway, as optimal point buy usually puts you at 16 intelligence and 14 to 16 constitution at level 1. You can also finally dump that pesky strength score that always made fighter wizards mad as hell. Draconic powers are the signature feature at level 1 though. Mechanically, they are loosely equivalent to what Eldritch invocations are to a warlock or what infusions are to an artificer. They grow in power and numbers as you gain levels. There are currently 7 power levels and the class progression table caps out at powers known at 7, but I'm almost positive these numbers will change and shuffle around in the final product. I don't know if they'll keep the powers confined to just red, blue and white draconic manifestations, but I will definitely like to see other dragons represented too. The free sample has descriptions for only 1 level draconic powers, but I will get to them later in the video. To me, this feature stands out as probably the most ambitious and labor-intensive part of the Dragonblade class design as a whole. The design team will have to come up with, develop and playtest enough different, distinct and useful options to avoid pigeonholing this class into select few best options options like what is the case with all the other classes in the game. I'm sure they're capable of pulling it off, but it's a gigantic task. Last but not least, Dragon Spirit is a feature that's obviously designed as a driving engine behind the character advancement milestones, tied to a bunch of features you get at levels 2, 4, 8, 10, 14 and 18. Mechanically it's a bit weird, but not in a bad way. First you get it at level 1, and at that point it's kind of a gimmick more than something actually useful. You get to roleplay about the Dragonblade theme and flavor, and that's fine, but, and this is kind of a second weirdness, you actually have to wait until level 2 for this feature to determine your subclass. If it was up to me, I'd just move it to level 2 feature when you get your Dragon Spirit subclass anyway. But another feature known as Draconic Intuition can be moved down to a level 1 instead, because it's really just a flavorful thing that fits the theme of a scholar consumed by the research of everything draconic. A better, clearer wording is definitely needed here though. What about creatures that don't have blood? What constitutes an intelligent creature? What if everybody in the area died from massive psychic damage that left absolutely no blood trail? I'm sure some of these questions can be answered by those knowledgeable in the Tanares lore. I'm not one of those, but an average player is probably not going to be searching for answers to those questions in the lore books. It needs to be made readily available and foolproof, in my own opinion. However, level 2 is more important for its subclass choice. We get one sample subclass, and of course, it's the Red Dragon. I mean, it's D&D, it had to be a Red Dragon. I'm not even mad, in fact, I'm glad that it's that way. Each subclass gets special draconic powers, which makes sense. Whenever you use your draconic powers, special or generic ones, you can empower your Dragon Spirit to damage all hostile creatures dealing damage to you or your allies. The damage scaling resembles that of Rogue's sneak attack. As long as you can position the Dragon Spirit properly in relation to yourself, your allies and your enemies, this extra damage is guaranteed due to no attack roll or saving throw requirements. However, it also cannot benefit from the lucky nat 20 critical roll. We have to have some exclusive privileges left to rogues after all, right? Ultimate Power is a feature that wraps up all of these draconic powers and other features in a neat little tactical minigame system. By combining 3 different types of powers tied to a specific part of dragon's bodies, wings, scales and claws, you can chain combos as long as you have enough turns, more specifically enough actions to activate various draconic powers. This makes it possible to both plan your character in advance, as well as make small scale decisions regarding the sequence and most optimal lesser and greater effects of all of these draconic powers. The attack roll advantage and temporary hit points aren't too shabby either, especially if you get damaged a lot and really need to hit the enemy. This really looks like a very interesting and fun synergy, and I cannot wait to playtest this class myself. All of the sample level 1 draconic powers can be used with both melee and ranged weapons. They all require one action to activate, so unless you take 2 levels in fighter for that action surge, which is a major detour from the Dragonblade class, of course, you need 3 rounds to set off an ultimate power combo. And what is there to combine exactly? Well, Ancestral Blessing draconic power is kind of whatever if you ask me, even with the temporary hit points combo stacking. However, Burning Strike is rather good because we all like damage over here, right? It's the only one that scales at higher levels, but it makes sense being subclass specific one. Its ultimate power combo will probably need a slight rewording in my opinion, because it seems to me it is intended to only apply to the extra damage of the Burning Strike itself, but if you look at some of the other powers, such as Elemental Flay for example, it's possible to stack multiple extra damage sources on a single attack roll, at least in theory. Dashing Rush is useful on melee Dragonblades more than ranged ones. Distracting Tail is low-key maybe even the most powerful one of the bunch, especially if most of the party relies on attack rolls. I wouldn't push for its ultimate combo, but it's not the worst idea either. Draconic Shield's basic effect is mediocre because it only really works against one attack, but the ultimate power is juicy because it's almost a free shield spell, and well, the type of the power is also good for all the comboing. Elemental Flay is simple, but it's very good for its type and what it does. Force Sway, however, I'm personally not a fan of effects that knock creatures prone, because it's automatic disadvantage on all ranged attacks rolled by your allies against the prone enemy, but if the party is full of barbarians, paladins and monks, I guess it makes some sense. Here's a quick level 3 Dragonblade mechanical concept I named the Scaletail Flail. To start the combo chain, you use Draconic Shield to give yourself or an ally taking a pounding some extra protection. Be a helpful party mate, going well well so far. Round 2 is still good for that distracting tail to help yourself and your allies have an easier time with attack rolls. Then round 3 is primed for a massive accuracy plus damage combo via Elemental Flay's ultimate power. Remember, you have advantage on this attack stacked on top of the -2 to enemy's armor class, so chances are high this attack hits. During all this time you were empowering your dragon spirit and it was spitting out 1d6 extra fire damage every round. When we add up all these attacks and all the dice together, this level 3 character has the potential to deal quite a significant amount of damage. Of course, some of the attacks will miss, that's just how d20 rolls stumble around the table, but you're chipping away at enemies' hit points one way or another and doing it with style and swag that few other martials can match. As much as I was kind of criticizing a lot of the features discussed above, remember, this is a free sample of a Kickstarter that hasn't even launched yet. Moreover, I was really kind of nitpicking the wording and language more than the actual mechanics themselves. In all honesty, I think Dragonblade, even in its clearly unfinished and unpolished form, is more playable at lower levels than some of the classes and mechanics from some paid products. I'm getting some D&D 3 and 3.5, maybe even Pathfinder vibes from the design principles. It's nowhere near the level of granularity and sheer number of character customization options. It's still a 5th edition class, but core martial class features from other martial classes never come with this much choice. The Tanares RPG Kickstarter is launching soon and I will be eagerly waiting to see how Dragonblade evolves and develops into a complete, finished class. If you still haven't, make sure you enter the massive giveaway and subscribe to the notification list. All the links are in the description down below. Special shout out to all of my current patrons, thank you for your continued support. I'm fiddling with the Madwalker script as we speak, it should be on the channel soon, so keep an eye out for that too. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe and hit the bell button for the YouTube algorithm. With everything said and done, me and Max Munchkin out, talk to you soon.